This is a mess. My condition was truly dire. My left arm was nowhere to be seen, I didn't know when it had been torn off. Blood gushed from the gaping hole in my abdomen. Most of my equipment was destroyed, leaving only a broken sword, about a third intact, as the sole usable item. A laugh escaped me. Heh, 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 heh. Li Hyun unleashed a torrent of curses at me. Cha Yunsong, you bastard. What the hell did you do? Li Hyun's state was even worse than mine. His lower body had been completely blown away, and his intestines were spilling out of his ruptured abdomen. This looks good. A smile spread across my face. You bastard. Answer me. What the hell is this? Sheesh, to be shouting so fiercely even in that state, he must be furious. Can't you tell by looking? I retorted with a snort. I just threw a wrench in things to make sure you all died. Heh heh. Heh heh heh. Ugh. The effects of the potions I'd used earlier seemed to be wearing off, and the pain was slowly returning. So what the hell was that? You son of a bitch. Why did you do this? Whyyyyyyyyyyyy? You don't know? Still haven't figured it out? What the hell do you mean? Gasp, huff. Because I couldn't kill you all. How could a mere tool like me kill such esteemed rankers? Ugh. This was the only way to take you down with me. Heh heh heh. 36 hours ago. We set out to conquer the Dragon Lord's nest. The boss monster, the Dragon Lord, was an 11-star entity, a cataclysm capable of devastating an entire nation single-handedly. France had been annihilated by it, and Japan's entire territory except Hokkaido had been reduced to ashes. Our guild, composed of the Republic of Korea's top-ranked players, finally reached the Dragon King's chamber, where the Dragon Lord resided, after countless hardships. The boss battle began. As the fight reached its climax, I executed the plan I had been dreaming of for so long. My first move was to stab the Dragon Lord's binding mage, Lashi Hyun, in the neck with the instant death dagger. Thwack. Gah. Lashi Hyun let out a pained scream and collapsed, instantly dead. Insolent vermin. How dare you? Freed from its restraints, the Dragon Lord went on a rampage, completely losing control. Kra-ah. The tank, Kim Kong-min, was reduced to a charred cinder by the Dragon Lord's fiery breath. Cha Yunsong, you crazy bastard. Chai Guangjin, the ranged DPS, drew his bowstring aimed at me, but did I really think I wouldn't anticipate such a move? How meticulously I prepared for this. Now, who was it that made that arrow again? Boom. The arrow tip detonated in a massive explosion. Ah. Chai Guangjin, naturally fragile as a ranged DPS, had his entire face blown off by the exploding arrow tip. Ugh, Aowa. Crunch. Suddenly blinded, Chai Guangjin had the honor of having his entire upper body swallowed whole by the Dragon Lord, who had closed the distance in an instant. Just wait a little longer. Baek Ah-young, the healer responsible for the guild's recovery, tried to infuse Chai Guangjin with life force, but that was just one of the reactions I'd calculated. Sigh. Baek Ah-young cast her healing spell, yet Chai Guangjin's wounds didn't heal even a speck. Yeah, keep trying all day and night. As if it'll heal even a speck. I packed the doping potion I drank before entering the Dragon King's chamber with plenty of death leaf extract, which interferes with healing. There was no way that would work. Ah, and one more thing. Whoosh. A swarm of bees flew in from somewhere and swarmed Baek Ah-young. Ever heard of eternal hell bees? They inhabit the 4-star dungeon, Primordial Jungle. Considering how much I struggled to keep them as a hobby for a while, I'd rather not talk about it. Aowa. I'm so happy I could die. La la la. I couldn't help but hum as I watched Baek Ah-young get shot and torn apart by the eternal hellbees. After everything she did to me. Cha Yunsong, you fucking bastard. You fucking bastard. The were riddled with holes and blown back. You bitch. Ugh. With their Pepe masks on, the wreckers leaping this way and that to avoid Choyura's chains looked just like frogs. It might have been a comical sight, but my face remained frozen. I blasted one of them back with the shotgun and unleashed a full auto burst into the thick of them, but we still weren't in a particularly good position. If this had been a skirmish between non-awakened, half of them would have been dead by now. But we were up against a group of hunters. These weren't the kind of bastards you could take down with just a couple of bullets. Kook. The one I'd knocked back with the shotgun was slowly picking himself up. He was covered in blood, but he didn't look like he was in any mortal danger. Most of the others who'd been caught in the hail of bullets were also alive and moving. Only one non-awakened, who'd been unlucky enough to take a bullet to the head, lay dead. Choyura seemed to have taken a few hits herself, but she didn't show any signs of struggling. Then again, even a one-star hunter, the lowest rank, was protected by an invisible, intangible barrier extending about 1 meter from their body, which absorbed a significant portion of a bullet's impact. Unless they were unlucky enough to take a headshot, even a one-star hunter could easily withstand a bullet or two. A 3-star hunter was nearly immune to fatal injuries from 7.62mm rifle rounds. Once a hunter reached 5-star rank, their barrier became so strong that it could deflect even the largest caliber bullets. This was why the surprise hail of gunfire had done so little damage, and why the wreckers hadn't bothered to worry about being ambushed by firearms. It had gotten to the point where some even claimed that for a non-awakened to kill a hunter, they'd be better off ditching guns for cold weapons like knives or axes and closing the distance to at least 1 meter for melee combat. That was the difference between a hunter and a non-awakened. Joker Pepe sneered. You must think we're some low-life nobodies. You really think a little bitch like you can scare us? Kiki. The frogs were brimming with confidence. And for good reason, this wrecker crew had every right to be. They weren't just a bunch of unawakened thugs. Out of the nearly 10 frogs, 7 or 8 were awakened, a formidable force by any standard. Even for a 4-star hunter like Choyura, surviving this encounter would be a struggle. Swoosh, asterisk. Huh? His eyes fluttered shut. Slap, slap, asterisk. I slapped his cheeks to keep him conscious. Don't you dare pass out. Stay with me. We're almost there. KGH. You bastard. You want to die here? What's your name? KGH. I said, what's your name? Kim. Do, Hyun. Do what? Do-hyun. Right, Do-hyun. Open your mouth. Say ah. But. How old are you? Why are you speaking informally to me? This guy's a real piece of work asterisk. Does age even matter right now? I'm 34. And my thought wasn't just a guess, it was based on experience. In my past life, Choyura had been mortally wounded, hovering between life and death. If I hadn't carried her away after awakening, she would have been reduced to a handful of ashes, caught in the same bombing that killed the wreckers she'd slaughtered. A chilling smile spread across Choyura's lips. Interesting. She advanced toward the frogs. Fine. If you want it that badly, I'll give it to you. Oh? You'll give us what? I'll cut off your dicks and shove them down your through. Bang, asterisk. Arg. A gunshot rang out, and one of the frogs was blown backward. Who the hell was that? Me, why, asterisk. Arg. You crazy bastard. Rar it, asterisk. I answered with a full auto burst from my carbine. Stay low and run. Do-hyun roared, grabbing the man and dragging him behind a nearby rock for cover. You crazy bastard. Who gave you permission to pull the trigger? Choyura screamed at me, her words laced with curses. I was going to kill them all anyway. I shouted. Die? Was that petty too? Lee Hyun was struck speechless, unable to utter a word. 3 years ago. The region where my mother lived had once been overrun by monsters. I begged them. Please, just once, help me. Save my mother. But their choice wasn't to save my family. It was to tackle another dungeon that was currently causing a major stir. Under the guise of sacrificing the few for the many, they ignored my desperate plea. And so, my mother died. How could it make sense that a mother, the mother of a hunter, and one of the top ranked at that, could be killed by monsters? They showed up at her funeral and offered insincere condolences. We're sorry. It turned out that way. Make sure the arrangements are done properly. This is the weight of being a hero. What choice do we have but to endure? The media, those trash reporters, lauded me with flowery rhetoric like a decisive act for the nation's salvation and a noble sacrifice. There's no need to say that it was all a smear campaign orchestrated by them. After that, everything changed. Fearing I might hold a grudge over what happened, they subtly pressured me by using my younger sister as leverage. They even monitored me and obstructed my interactions with other hunters, all because I was an SSS class supporter, valuable tools in their hands. So I vowed. I would definitely take revenge on them. Today is my mother's Memorial Day. I think I prepared enough to make her spirit feast until the table groans. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you until the end. I was worried about my sister being left alone after this, but she'll be fine. I'd made arrangements, after all. It'll be tough, but she's strong enough to manage without a fool of an older brother. Heh heh. Li Hyun laughed. Cha Yunsong, you idiot. Do you think this will bring your dead mother back to life? Heh heh, heh heh heh. Fine, let's say you've succeeded in your revenge. Do you really think the sister you've been coddling will be safe? Li Hyun didn't. Hunters abandon their companions to save themselves during hunts. This man is truly remarkable. At least he didn't abandon his disabled wife to save himself. I encouraged him sincerely, you are incredibly brave. Please don't be so hard on yourself. It's not just active military personnel and hunters who fight. This is an era where everyone fights for survival. Unawakened individuals also fight in their own ways, for their own survival and the safety of their families. Like this man, like my father. This is especially true in the current situation. When a surprise transference occurs, it takes at least 30 minutes to an hour for the military and hunters to arrive at the scene. So, civilians must also know how to fight. But the man lowered his head. You did so well. Thank you. The woman in the wheelchair tightly gripped his hand. If you hadn't bravely fought, we'd all be dead before they arrived. I love you, honey. Whoa, that's sweet asterisk. The woman's eyes were full of tender affection as she looked at her husband. His eyes held the same warmth as he gazed back at her. I didn't know if they had any children, but maybe today would be the day they'd have a late-life baby? We don't have time for this right now. Sir, you should hold your wife's wheelchair. And reload your weapon, just in case. Ah, understood. But my hand brushed against his as he was replacing the magazine. Try not to use the gun unless absolutely necessary. I don't want to die by your hand. Understood? I'll keep that in mind. If we make it out of here alive, you should train regularly. I know you're busy, but what's the point of all this if you die? You can't always rely on someone else to save you. Ah, yes. I'll consider that. Let's go. The drone's thermal imaging showed the monster swarming in like a pack of wild dogs. Right, gunfire always attracts the monsters asterisk. We needed to hurry. Bang. Bang, asterisk. Even as we moved, the sounds of gunfire and explosions echoed endlessly in. Making menacing hissing sounds with his mouth. SSH, SSH. SSH, SSH, SSH. This bastard isn't even flinching. Let's see if you can keep that smug look on your face after I rip open your gut and spill your intestines. Wrecker lunged forward, slashing with his knife. I swung my axe to counter. Clang, clanning, asterisk. Kook. The impact of the axe and knife sent a jolt through my arms, nearly tearing my grip loose. Oh, you're actually putting up a fight? Swoosh, swoosh. This little shit. You're playing with a pro now. The bastard seemed enraged that I showed no fear, and he began to lash out wildly. Ugh. I focused solely on defense, waiting for the right moment. I feigned panic, flailing and leaving openings to lure him in. I only get one chance. Maybe two if I'm lucky, asterisk. Stab, stab, asterisk. Even as the knife pierced my thigh and shoulder, I kept up the act. Ah? You said you'd rip my guts out, right? Then I guess I'll start with your belly. He swung the knife in a wide arc. Now, asterisk. I dropped low and swept his legs. Thud, asterisk. The bastard crashed to the ground in an unsightly heap. Crack, asterisk. I slammed my axe into his skull with all my might, but the blade didn't sink in deep enough, probably because he was a 2-star hunter. It had barely penetrated his skull by about 3 centimeters. But that was fine. My attack wasn't over yet. I wrapped my legs around his neck, squeezing tight. You son of a bitch, GHK. As he thrashed, the strength in my legs began to fade. I knew simply strangling him wouldn't finish him off. So I'd prepared a little gift. Squeeze, asterisk. While I tightened my grip on his struggling neck with every ounce of my strength, I tore off his mask. I pulled the pin from the grenade, forced his mouth open, and shoved it deep down his throat. Goodbye, I whispered. 1, 2, now. Boom, asterisk. As soon as I threw myself forward, the grenade exploded, and the bastard's head burst like a watermelon. Ha, ha. Without even a moment to check the corpse, The same now. The scene unfolding before my eyes was identical to a day 10 years ago. Breaking news, a strike team of 9 hunters is being deployed to tackle the gate that has appeared at Dangsan Station in Seoul. The names of the hunters participating in this operation are. I hope they all return safely, my father muttered to himself while watching the news. The news was live-streaming footage of a group of hunters heading toward the newly created gate. Just like that. My father was watching the news while meticulously cleaning his carbine rifle and shotgun. It had been almost 10 years since humanity was first invaded by monsters. In countries around the world, the legalization of gun ownership was no longer a subject of debate. My father, a former Navy Special Forces member, now served as the commander of the local defense force. Honey, you'll wear them out at this rate, my mother, a homemaker, said from beside him, peeling a mango. Her gaze dripped with adoration as she watched him. My brother is so handsome, my younger sister said, watching an Idol's concert on her smartphone. But why is he my brother? Your brother is right here, you know? I shook my head at my younger brother's childish behavior. Sitting at the kitchen table, I gazed at my family, and a smile came to my lips. So what if this is a dream? I didn't care. Father, mother, and my younger brother. The mere fact that the family I thought I'd never see again was gathered here was enough. It's peaceful. It's a crazy world. In this era of monster invasions, people died daily, and every morning we woke to news of another city reduced to ashes. Yet, people tried their best to maintain a semblance of ordinary life. Like our family now. In the afternoon, I went to the shooting range with my father. Given his background, my father loved shooting very much. He often took me to the range as well. After the gun legalization bill passed, he even gifted me everything from pistols to rifles and shotguns. Lately. Really? Alright, I won't force you. Father seemed disappointed by my refusal, but he didn't say anything more. That dawn, I pretended to go to the bathroom, slipped out of the tent, and stole my father's car to head to Seoul. Even in this crazy world, drunk driving is a bit much. Biroom. As I floored the accelerator, the 8-cylinder engine roared like a beast. I checked the time. 3 a.m. 7 hours left. 10 a.m. The area within a 3-kilometer radius centered on our apartment complex was scheduled to be consumed by the transfer phenomenon. The reason I'd suddenly suggested a trip was to evacuate my family from the transfer. But I was the exception. To awaken again and become a hunter, I had to be at the epicenter of the event. As I walked home, I remembered my father's last words. "I'll hold them off here. Take Mom and Yunha and get out of here quickly. But go. Now." The image of my father's noble and brave back as he faced the enemy burned into my mind. But in this life, I swore I wouldn't lose my father again. I couldn't bear to see his mangled body again, a corpse so mutilated that even the undertaker would gasp in horror. Dragon Lord, whatever your reasons for sending me back in time, I will never let history repeat itself. Never. When I meet the Dragon Lord again, I'll demand an answer. Why did you send me back to the past? I absolutely hate being a supporter. Is it really right for a special forces officer like Hu Bozang to become one? The memory of being dragged around and exploited as a tool in my past life made my teeth grind and my blood boil. Now that I've come back to the past, my greatest wish would be to awaken as a dealer instead of a supporter, just serving others. Of course, that wasn't something I could control. First, I need to prepare. As soon as I arrived home, I armed myself. I put on a ballistic helmet, donned a plate carrier, and packed ammunition and grenades. I also grabbed a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. In the old days, this. Finish his sentence. Crunch. The Dragon Lord's jaws clamped down on Li Hyun's skull. Crunch, crunch. My, how he's enjoying his meal. Our Dragon Lord must have been starving. Swish. The Dragon Lord turned its head, its gaze landing on me. Shiver. The Dragon Lord's gaze felt like it was crushing my heart, no, my very soul. Don't panic. I have something to rely on. You're someone I can't kill. Perhaps because he was an 11-star boss monster, the Dragon Lord seemed to recognize me. Or rather, what I possessed, at a single glance. That's right. I'm someone you can't kill. As I said this, I took out 3 stone orbs from my inventory. Swish. The orbs glowed red, yellow, and blue, revealing their true forms. The Dragon King's wish-granting pearls. This was the crowning jewel of the plan I had painstakingly completed after countless hardships. According to ancient texts discovered in the dungeon, if one gathered the 3 pearls and presented them to the Dragon Lord, he would grant a wish. Now, it was time to see if that claim was true. I will make a wish. In accordance with the covenant passed down since the dawn of creation, I will grant your wish. My wish is. Thud. The Dragon Lord's hand pierced through the center of my chest, right through my heart. Huh. I gasped, unable to even speak, and let out a hollow breath. When you said you'd grant my wish. What you truly desire will be granted through death. What kind of bullshit is this, you damn lizard bastard? Sigh, is this how I die? Without even getting to make my wish. My consciousness began to fade. When I opened my eyes again. Son. If you're going to sleep, at least eat something first. My mother was looking down at me. It took me several days to accept that I had returned to the past. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought it was all a dream, that damn lizard bastard was playing a trick on me. But everything I saw, heard, and felt told me I had returned to the past. It was 3 wreckers fighting Choi Yura, one by one. Squelch, asterisk. The 3 wreckers' heads fell with a spray of blood, their headless bodies collapsing. So this is what it means to be a dealer. A thrill ran through me. In my past life, I could never have dreamed of such a thing. Though I was a 10-star hunter, my primary role was a supporter, and I didn't have a single attack skill. I was nothing more than a lackey, cleaning up after my fellow hunters. And yet, the glory always went to those at the front lines. No one ever recognized me. I even had to endure the insulting claim that the only reason my guild brought me along was to use me as a pretty face for their public image. And now, here I am, slicing off enemies' heads. I had prayed for anything but being a supporter again. Had my wish finally come true? I still don't know. I decided not to get ahead of myself. I couldn't yet figure out exactly what kind of class Mad Collector was. Let's deal with this situation first. This time I launched Full Moon at the monsters. Boom, asterisk. The monsters were sliced apart like tofu. Choi Yura put the finishing touch on the fight. CHRRRR, asterisk. Khóa. Chains tore the body of the one wearing the Joker Pepe mask to shreds. You're the boss, right? Hee hee. Choi Yura approached the fallen leader of the Wrecker pack and ripped off his mask. A face that looked to be in its mid-40s was revealed. Now, shall we keep our promise? Promise? I told you. I'd cut off your dick and shove it down your throat. Hold still. Aag. I turned my head away. Of course, the Wreckers deserved to suffer such a fate, so I didn't stop her. I just didn't want to witness such a gruesome sight with my own eyes. Phew. Now I feel relieved. Choi Yura wore a look of liberation. Seeing her covered in blood with a mad smile on her face, I thought the call sign Bloody Mary suited her perfectly. Thanks for earlier. Good job. Oh, and congratulations on your awakening. You've become. Staunch the bleeding. With his right hand, he pulled the trigger of his carbine rifle, unleashing a barrage of bullets at the monsters. I'll get you out of here alive, no matter what, asterisk. His fighting spirit ignited within me like a fire demon. Who said the unawakened were helpless? Even a mere apartment security guard possessed such fierce determination. Focus asterisk. As he carefully pulled the trigger, mindful of his dwindling ammunition, a metallic was cut through the air. Screech, asterisk. A chain flew through the air and wrapped around a troll's neck. Screech, asterisk. The chain, studded with sharp blades along each link, tightened around the troll's neck, grinding through flesh and bone as if it were slicing through butter. Rumble, asterisk. The troll's severed head rolled across the ground. They arrived sooner than I expected, asterisk. There was no need to confirm who it was with my own eyes. At this time and place, there was only one hunter who would be swinging a chain like this. With a welcoming smile, I turned my head. A heavily armed hunter stood before us, her face impassive. In her hand, she gripped a chain bristling with blades. Yura. Call sign, Bloody Mary. In my past life, she was the hunter who had led me, my mother, and my younger sister out of this place. I'll handle them. Get the injured out of here, Choi Yura said curtly, then swung her chains. Swoosh, asterisk. The chain's power was brutal. Kayak. Hya. The monsters melted away like ketchup. With a single swing, she wrapped the chains around 3 of them at once and shredded them. It was so satisfying to watch. Now that's a true DPS asterisk. My gaze grew misty as I watched Choi Yura. That overwhelming attack power, sweeping through enemies with such ease, it was everything I had ever craved in my past life. Because I had awakened as a non-combat class in my previous life, I had never once cleared a battlefield like that. Non-combat hunters' attack skills were practically useless against monsters ranked 3-star or into the loot card as if drawn by a vacuum. The spirit sword is both the symbol and the alter ego of an awakened. It's not an object in the traditional sense, it's closer to a living organism. Even if destroyed, it regenerates after a certain period. It can be temporarily stolen, but it will always return to its owner after a few days. In that sense, the spirit sword of a dead person is nothing more than worthless trash. When its owner dies, the spirit sword loses its value. It can't be picked up and used, and it vanishes after 49 hours anyway, so there's no reason to care about it. No wonder the West calls spirit swords soul calibers. For such a spirit sword to be absorbed into a card was truly astonishing. Twilight Blade. Equipment card. 2-star. Looted dagger. This actually works? I wasn't the only one surprised. What the hell is this? Choi-yura asked me, her voice laced with disbelief. Did this card absorb the spirit sword? Looks like it. That's impossible. Choi-yura stared at me, her eyes filled with doubt, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. How is that even possible? How should I know? I just awakened. So, can you actually use it? Hold on. In response to her question, I examined the card that had transformed from loot into Twilight Blade. Shring, asterisk. The card glowed and materialized into the shape of a dagger. We both flinched in surprise. You mean you can use the spirit sword of the dead? We'll have to wait and see for 49 hours. It might just disappear. Fair point. Choi-yura nodded. Wait here. Let me pick up all the others first. Hurry up. We're really running out of time. Got it. Moving as quickly as possible, I looted the spirit swords scattered all over the place. A total of 11 cards, each containing a spirit sword, were sucked into the infinite deck. So that's what they meant by mad collector. Asterisk. But there was no time for deep thought. Shwoo. Boom, asterisk. The whistling sound of something cutting. Would have looked like I was heading to war, but that's just how times are. Humanity has been at war with monsters for the past decade. 1 hour left. Checking the time, I launched the drone. Civilians need prior authorization to fly drones, but since chaos was imminent, it wouldn't matter. I stormed into the management office without hesitation. Despite it being the weekend, armed young guards were on duty due to the times. What's going on? There's no monster attack, so why are you all so heavily armed? Of course, I'd be punished. One wrong move and I could be shot by the dispatched military and police. Get out of my way. Bang. Crash. I shoved the guard aside, smashed through the glass window on the wall, and frantically slammed the emergency bell. Emergency. Emergency. Residents, please listen. Residents, please listen. A transfer phenomenon has been observed. All residents must evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. A transfer phenomenon has been observed. The siren blared, and the emergency evacuation broadcast echoed through the entire complex. All right, that should be enough. An hour should be more than enough time for everyone to evacuate. You crazy son of a bitch. The guard roared, reaching into his desk drawer. But I was faster. Ah. The guard collapsed with a pained cry. You crazy bastard. Ugh. The guard swore violently as he struggled to rise. Stop whining, I sneered. It was just 3 non-lethal rubber rounds. Besides, they hit his bulletproof vest, his plate carrier, so he wouldn't get hurt. Ring ring, ring ring. The phone rang. Answer it. I pressed the muzzle of my gun against his temple. What are you waiting for? Pick it up. I said answer it. And by the way, these aren't training rounds this time. If you don't listen, I'll put a hole in your head. The guard fumbled for the receiver. Yes, this is the Hyunsan apartment complex 2 security office. Yes, that's correct. So right now. Transference phenomenon observed. Radius 3. Surprise, but the result wasn't bad. The card dissolved into light, soothing her wound. This is. Choi-yura looked stunned as she realized her heavy body felt lighter. Don't dodge the cards. And don't deflect them either. You threw that? Yes. Did you awaken? Yeah. Focus. I drew another card from the deck. Enhance. Magic card. 1 star. Temporarily enhances the target. I didn't know its exact effect, but I threw it at Choyura anyway, hoping it would help. Whoosh, thud, asterisk. The card slammed into the center of Choyura's chest. Whoosh, asterisk. Blazing ether flames enveloped her. Clang, asterisk. The chain thickened, and the blades protruding from each link extended. What is this? Choyura frowned in disbelief, then decided to take a chance and swung the chain. The chain shot forward at an incomparably faster speed than ever before, wrapping around one of the 3-star wreckers. Gah. Creak, asterisk. Choyura yanked the chain with all her might. Cack. The wrecker, ensnared by the chain, let out a wretched scream as it was torn in two. Fuck. That bastard. Kill him first. The wreckers weren't fools, they turned their sights on me instead of Choyura. But Choyura wasn't about to let that happen. The chains, strengthened by the card, tore through the wreckers. Aarg. Ack. As Choyura shredded the wreckers with her chains, I threw myself toward Dohyen and the couple. Does it have an attack skill? Asterisk. The full moon card was drawn from the deck. Whoosh, asterisk. The card flew, transforming into an incredibly thin disc. Slick, asterisk. The disc slashed through the necks of the wreckers attacking Dohyen and the couple. SSS-Rank, asterisk. Bright red blood erupted like a fountain, and the wreckers' heads rolled off. Shudder, asterisk. A chill ran down my spine. It cut through that easily? Even seeing it with my own eyes, I couldn't believe such sharpness. Let's try it again, asterisk. Wanting to test its power, I threw another, full moon. Whoosh. Asterisk. The thin disc sliced through the necks of the. After all. I smiled bitterly, glancing toward my old home. The apartment complex that had once been my family's sanctuary was now a wasteland, devastated by the bombing. I'll probably be living in a tent in the refugee camp for the next few months until temporary housing becomes available. Right. That makes sense. Let me know if you need any help. I can't stand owing anyone favors. Thanks for saying that. Oh, by the way, I have a favor to ask. What is it? Go ahead. I want you to keep my story a secret. What story? Everything. The world is obsessed with new awakened. Whenever someone awakens, not only the government but even the media swarm them, prying and pestering with endless questions. Are you planning to remain an unregistered awakened? An unregistered awakened is someone who hides the fact that they have awakened. They might be trying to avoid the responsibilities and duties imposed on the awakened, or they might simply want to avoid the hassle. I'd heard there were quite a few who deliberately concealed their identities, much like those wrecker streamers, with the intent to commit crimes. And this kind of person usually falls into one of two extremes. Either incredibly powerful, or utterly insignificant. If that were the case, I would have silenced everyone from the start. I'm just doing this because I don't want to deal with the hassle. So I'd appreciate it if you didn't go around talking about it. And if I refuse? Choyura asked provocatively. There was a hint of playfulness in her tone, but she wasn't joking, at least not about this. Then I'll have no choice. I'll have to expose your true identity. Godfather would love to know who Choyura really is. Or should I say Lee Dahi? Crack. Choyura grabbed me by the collar. What the hell are you? She snarled. What's your real identity? How did you find out? Let go. Answer me. I told you to let go. I sneered. If I were planning to expose you, I would have snitched. Over the loudspeakers. Residents, please be advised. Bombing will commence in 30 minutes. All residents must evacuate the area immediately. We repeat, bombing will commence in 30 minutes. It was a decision that showed not a shred of consideration for the elderly or infirm, but it was understandable. Generally, the transfer phenomenon only worsens over time. If left unchecked, stronger monsters will continue to transference in greater numbers, leading to more casualties and property damage. That's why we had no choice but to launch the bombing raid, even if it meant sacrificing civilian lives. Let's move faster. I led the group, pushing us forward as quickly as possible. Kayak. Kayak. A few goblins blocked our path. I'll handle this. Turn your guns elsewhere. Ah, yes. Thwack. Thwack, asterisk. I split the goblins' heads with my axe, clearing the way. Even unawakened individuals could easily handle one-star monsters, depending on their training. As a cadet at this time, my physical strength and endurance were already well developed, making this possible. Huff. Even so, it was inevitable that he'd be a little out of breath. Even though he was now a supporter, back when he was a hunter, he'd never even broken a sweat fighting a few goblins. Let's avoid using guns if we can. Not only because of the noise, but because they're also sensitive to the smell of gunpowder. Ah, yes. Understood. They hurried their steps, but their progress remained agonizingly slow. With one of their party members being physically impaired and needing to avoid the gargoyles dominating the skies, as well as other lurking monsters, they couldn't help but move slowly. No signal. In the meantime, a gargoyle brought down the drone, leaving them unable to monitor their surroundings. We were about 500 meters away from the area affected by the transference. While 500 meters wasn't a great distance, the transference had transformed the surroundings into rugged mountainous terrain, making kilometers. He whispered into the guard's ear. Yes, we've observed a transference phenomenon. It's expected to spread within a 3 kilometers radius. Request military and police support. Deploy hunters immediately. Requesting military and police support. Yes. We'd be grateful if you could deploy hunters quickly as well. The guard hung up the phone. Good work. Keeping his gun trained on the guard, he grabbed the microphone. Attention residents. Evacuate as far as possible. We strongly advise evacuating more than 3 kilometers from the area. Let me repeat, evacuate as far as possible. After repeating the announcement several times, he lowered the microphone. Hands. Son. I bound the guard's wrists with zip ties and forced him into a chair. Try anything funny, and I'll shoot you for real. So just stay put. What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you some kind of terrorist? Do I look like it? Stay put. You'll be thanking me for letting you live later. With that, I settled back and leisurely watched the drone footage on my smartphone. Good, everyone's getting away safely. DZZZT. My phone vibrated. It was my father. As a commander in the local defense force, he would have heard the news quickly. And he must have called the moment he realized I'd taken the car and disappeared. My father must have received an order to return quickly, but by the time the Yonban from Yongwal arrived, the situation would have already been resolved. Heh. Suddenly, I burst into laughter. In the past, I wouldn't have dared to act so boldly. I would have knocked before barging into the management office and strained every nerve to persuade the guards. But now, I was different. 3 years ago. The moment I vowed revenge against those inhuman bastards, I had become someone who would stop at nothing to achieve my goal. What's with that expression? Do I look like a madman? Ah, no. No, you're not. It's written all over your face. It's a mad world anyway. To survive in this. The distance. A Black Hawk helicopter and 3 Apache attack helicopters armed with Hellfire missiles soared overhead. It seemed the military and police, equipped with heavy weapons, and even aerial assets, were engaged in a full-scale battle against the monsters. Over here. Over here. It's me. The guard yelled at the helicopter until, realizing it wasn't working, he pulled out a flare. Don't. Huh? Don't fire the flare. Not if you want to live. Why not? The guard wore a look of utter incomprehension. Taking the helicopter is faster and safer than walking out. You think monsters don't have aerial assets? Huh? Look. I pointed to the sky. Kia. Kia. Flying species. Dozens of bat-like monsters swarmed from somewhere and began attacking our helicopter. They called them gargoyles, another name humanity had given them. How would humanity ever know their true names? Aya. I watched a soldier on the helicopter plummet to his death. Whoosh. Bang. Finally, an Apache helicopter crashed into the apart building, exploding in a fiery inferno. Anyone want a ride in the helicopter? No one answered. If you still want to fire that flare, do it alone after we're gone. Sorry. Let's move through the trees and bushes. Otherwise, those damn gargoyles will snatch us up like prizes from a claw machine. As we moved, I checked the time. We're running out of time. This transference event couldn't be resolved with humanity's conventional weapons and tactics. The hunters would be deployed soon, but it wouldn't be enough. The sheer number of monsters being transferred was too overwhelming for human forces to push back. The best approach in this situation is to level the entire area with bombing to reduce the monster population, then have hunters step in to close the core of the transfer phenomenon, the gate. In other words, our apartment is about to be reduced to rubble by bombing. As expected, the moment the sirens blared, an announcement crackled. Clumps of bacteria. Even if you could somehow treat external injuries, many people still died from various bacterial infections or sepsis. Administering antibiotics wasn't optional, it was essential. KGH. Despite his struggle, he seemed desperate to live, forcing the antibiotic and potion down his throat. Humph. A smirk escaped me. Kim Do-hyun, was it? He had a survival instinct as fierce as his fighting spirit. Feeling any better? Yes, a little. Perhaps because he'd drunk the life potion, the man's complexion had noticeably improved. Just moments ago, he'd been slowly losing consciousness. Now that you're awake, get up. Here. Thank you. He took the hand I offered and pulled himself to his feet. He seemed dizzy, likely from the blood loss, but a transfusion was out of the question. He just had to endure it. You're good at fighting and first aid. Are you active duty? Choi Yura, who had finished off the remaining monsters, approached and asked. No, just a civilian, I replied with a smirk. It was good to see my savior after so long. And since she'd saved me not once, but twice, I was deeply grateful. Aren't you being a bit too casual with someone who just saved you? You look younger than me, too. Choi Yura's voice was ice cold. You're the one who spoke informally first. I'm 34. And you? Choi Yura fell silent. Things had been cutting it close, but it was safe to say everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. I had rescued a couple who lived in the same apartment complex but had never even crossed paths before. I'd also saved Do-hyun, but that wasn't really important. What mattered was meeting Choi Yura. Why else would I have come home, knowing full well that transference would occur? Choi Yura was the most crucial piece of the puzzle in recreating the conditions that were as close as possible to when I first awakened my hunter powers. Of course, I could have tried to awaken in another place or through a different method, but that within the same class share similar patterns. For instance, dealers typically bear the crest of a sword. Tankers bear shields, and mages bear staves or magical orbs. Supporters bear a hand or a heart. In my past life, my crest had been an image of two hands cupping a heart. What is this? The crest I received in this awakening was something I'd never seen before, even in my previous life. It depicted a serpent devouring its own tail, forming a circle, with a five-pointed star inscribed within. Wasn't this called a pentagram? Did such a crest ever exist? I had met countless hunters and seen an infinite number of awakened certification photos in my past life, but Kaya. Thwack. Keck. I continued my train of thought after slapping the lunging goblin away with my bare hand. The goblin flew nearly 10 meters before crashing into the bushes. This phenomenon was called the ether's blessing. A freshly awakened person would wield monstrous strength for about 5 to 10 minutes. You could think of it as a kind of special privilege or consideration granted to those who have just awakened. Status window. As I focused my mind and called out the command, my current status was intuitively displayed. Name, Cha Yunsong. Primary role group, Guide. Secondary role group, Infinity. Class, Madness Collector. Rank, 1 star. Guide? It was a role group I'd never heard of before. Role groups were divided into 5 categories: warrior, assassin, mage, guardian, and supporter. All awakened fall into these 5 role groups, being assigned either one or 2 of them. For example, in my past life, my primary role group was supporter, and my secondary was mage. But, guide? And my secondary role group is listed as infinity. So that's why they call it the Madness Collector, asterisk. As I struggled to process this unexpected awakening result, an announcement pierced my ears. Attention all personnel on site. A bombing is imminent. Please evacuate the area immediately. Repeating, a bombing. To the Incheon Alliance long ago. Think about it. I know you have a nasty temper, but you should know who you're dealing with. We were comrades just a moment ago. We saved each other's lives. I felt the grip on my collar slowly loosen. Tell me. How did you find out? I'll contact you soon. Just wait. Do it now. I'm afraid that's not possible. My family is here. I gestured with my eyes toward a specific direction. There stood my father, mother, and younger sister, wandering aimlessly with half-vacant expressions. Save it. Of course I will. We're going to be seeing a lot of each other from now on, after all. I said as I typed my number into Choi Yura's smartphone. Call sign Godfather, asterisk. Incheon Alliance, asterisk. And Lee Dahi, asterisk. These were the magic words that could make a 4-star hunter like Choi Yura dance to my tune. Of course, there were plenty of other ways to make her move, but... What are you going to do now? Are you going to enter the gate? Now that the bombardment had thinned the monster hordes, it was time for the hunters to move in and clear the dungeon. If I recalled correctly, this wasn't a particularly difficult dungeon to conquer. No, I'm taking a break, Choi Yura replied, her face stiff. I didn't come here to clear the dungeon in the first place. It meant she had come with the sole intention of killing the wreckers from the very beginning. Saving us was just a side effect. Yeah, that sounds about right, asterisk. I nodded inwardly, understanding Choi Yura's true motives. You'd better contact me. I will, so just wait. I already gave you my number. I mean, do it soon. I hate waiting. With that, Choi Yura got into the illegally parked Lamborghini across the street and sped away. Vroom. Asterisk. The V12 engine roared, its exhaust screaming like a shout. Ugh, my eardrums are gonna burst, asterisk. Choi Yura's Lamborghini vanished from sight in the blink of an eye. Can't even ride a motorcycle, yet she's speeding like a maniac, asterisk. I shook my head and... back. It was the truth. This fight was inevitable. The wreckers wearing Pepe masks were the worst of the worst, known for their reckless and brutal tactics. And Choi Yura was a hunter notorious for her own fierce temper. Once the insults started flying, a fight to the death was the only possible outcome. She knew that. She was just startled because I'd pulled the trigger without warning. And given her personality, the fact that I, a mere civilian, not even a hunter, Had started the fight on my own terms must have infuriated her. You. Just you wait until this is over. What, you're going to kill me too? Yeah. Help. Help. A hunter is killing a civilian. I responded to Choi Yura's threat with a defiant do your worst. The damage was already done. There was no point in trying to undo it now. Well, I'll probably just get punched a couple of times once things settle down, I thought. You bastard. Kill that son of a bitch first. Despite being hunters, the wreckers were using guns. Bullets flew toward us. Under the cover of their allies' suppressive fire, several wreckers advanced toward the rock Do-hyun and I were using for cover. Not so fast. Just then, a chain whipped through the air, striking the wreckers who were providing cover fire. Ack. Damn it. The wreckers scrambled for cover, diving away from the chain. Choi Yura's chain was infamous for its brutality. Even a glancing blow could tear through skin and muscle. If it ever wrapped around a limb, it would shred the flesh and sever arms or legs with ease. If it wrapped around your neck, your head would be severed instantly. Without enough armor, your waist would be sliced clean through, splitting your body in two. That's why the wreckers were desperate to avoid the chains, no matter what. Thanks to Choi Yura, I was able to peek out from behind the rock and unleash a hail of bullets on the approaching wreckers. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat, asterisk. Ack. Ack. The Brentus muzzle flashed, and the advancing wreckers. Higher. A slaughter like this was something I could never even dream of. I had simply watched from the sidelines as damage dealers like Choi Yura swept through the enemy, silently doing my own job. Cough. Cough, cough, asterisk. The guard's coughing sound pierced my ears. Snapping back to my senses, I rushed to his side. Stay with me. Keep your eyes open. Do you understand? He managed to nod weakly. I'm going to stop the bleeding and apply a potion now. You're not going to die, so don't worry. I'll get you out of here no matter what, so grit your teeth and hang in there. Got it? I kept talking to him to keep him conscious as I pulled medical supplies from the first aid kit. After donning latex gloves, I poured hydrogen peroxide over his wound to disinfect it. Then, I applied a vitality recovery potion, made by mixing a refined solution of specific monster blood with extracts from plants found in the Gates dungeons, to accelerate the healing of his external injuries. Finally, I stitched the wound and helped him up. Asterisk. His eyes fluttered shut. Tap, tap, asterisk. I slapped his cheeks to wake him up. Don't you dare pass out. Stay with me. We're almost there. Kook. You bastard. Do you want to die here? What's your name? Ugh. What's your name? Kim. Do-hyun. Do what? Do-hyun. Right, Do-hyun. Open up. Say ah. But. How old are you? You've been speaking informally to me this whole time. This kid is a real piece of work. Asterisk. Is age really the most important thing right now? Asterisk. I'm 34. Wait, wasn't I 24 at this time? Asterisk. Whatever, asterisk. You can keep speaking informally. I glared at him for a moment, then grabbed his jaw and forced it open. Open wide. Say ah dot. Ah. Swallow. It's an antibiotic. I shoved the pill deep into his throat and poured a life potion down after it. I gave him the antibiotic just in case, to ward off any potential infection. Fortunately, monsters didn't carry new viruses, but they were essentially walking. Insufficient against these creatures, making 7.62 mm the standard caliber. The barrel erupted in flames. Bang! 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 Turning at the sound of gunfire, I saw the guard, his face tense with anxiety, pulling the trigger at the monsters. Kayak! Ugh! When only 2 monsters remained, I stopped firing and drew my hand axe. Cease fire. Cease fire. Bang. A bullet grazed my ear. Ah, fuck. I almost died again. Cease fire. Take your finger off the trigger. Bang. 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 I said take your finger off the trigger. Aya. The middle-aged man, driven mad by the terror of death, was wasting precious bullets on targets he wasn't even hitting. He hid behind a parked car for a moment, then, when the man's bullets seemed to run out, he sprang out like lightning and slaughtered the monsters. The heads of the one-star monsters, which humanity called goblins, split open one after another, spraying white brains and crimson blood. Reload. Clack clack clack. Unaware that the situation was over, the middle-aged man struggled with trembling hands to reload his pistol. Hey. Reload. Hey, sir, slap. Finally, the man snapped out of his daze after being slapped. Thank you. Didn't you hear the evacuation announcement? What have you been doing this whole time? I'm sorry. My wife is ill. Oh no. A middle-aged woman was trembling in her wheelchair. Push your wheelchair and follow us. We'll take the lead. Ah, yes. But. Are you a soldier? Or a hunter? I'm a civilian. But how did you fight so well? I couldn't have done it. The middle-aged man was still trembling with fear, yet he couldn't hide his shame. He seemed tormented by his failure to evacuate and protect his disabled wife in time. But I had no intention of blaming him. In fact, this was the norm. It would be stranger if an untrained civilian man, neither a soldier nor a hunter, could fight monsters effectively. Even hunters often succumb to terror in life-or-death situations. I'd seen countless. As well as equipment like body armor and helmets. The shooting session was over. I set down the pistol and checked the target. 26 bullets had hit the bullseye. The remaining 4 were just slightly off-center. 296 out of 300 points. Not bad at all, considering it had been almost 8 years since I last fired a gun. Son. My father approached and asked. Yes? Wasn't the last time you shot 2 weeks ago? That's right. You improved this much in just 2 weeks. I was speechless. My father's question was reasonable. If marksmanship improved so easily, everyone would be a sharpshooter or a member of the special forces. Pistol shooting, in particular, is surprisingly difficult and doesn't improve quickly. That's perfectly normal. Moreover, my shooting skills at the time were nothing special, so it's understandable that my father was puzzled. I'm just excited because it's been a while. It wasn't about the shooting. I was so thrilled to be spending time with my father that I couldn't contain myself. Did you train separately? Yeah. I'm enlisting in a few months. I need to train hard. At that time, I was scheduled to enlist as an ROTC officer in a few months. Just like my late grandfather and my father. After commissioning, I plan to apply to the Navy Special Forces. Special Forces? In an era where humanity battles monsters? You might ask. But even non-awakened individuals have their roles to play. For monsters up to 4-star, humanity's conventional weapons proved sufficiently effective, making both the Special Forces and the military crucial. But I couldn't become a member of the Special Forces like my grandfather or father. Next week, I'll awaken and become a hunter, and my father will pass away. Son. Yes? Is something wrong lately? No? I tried to put on an innocent expression, as if I had no idea what he was talking about. Why do you ask? Nothing. My father shook his head. Still, if anything happens or if you was too risky. The difference between being able to predict variables and not, between having some control over the situation and none at all, was like night and day. I'd finally come back to the past, and I refused to die pointlessly before even getting a chance to awaken. If I kicked the bucket the moment I awakened, how could I possibly rest in peace? The bombing's about to start. Move, now. Copy that. Do-hyun helped the guy to his feet and followed Choi-yura. Honey, is that the young lady? The one from the news? I think so. Goodness. How can such a young, beautiful lady be so strong? Well, she is a hunter, after all. The couple's whispers about Choi-yura drifted over to me. Choi-yura was a hunter classified as a fourth generation. While not a ranker, she was still quite well known in her own right. Her strength was formidable, but her fame was also bolstered by her unique, decadent beauty, the distinctive tattoos covering her entire body, and her cool call sign, Bloody Mary. We're almost there. Everyone, hang in there just a little longer. Choi-yura swung the chains wrapped around her hands, relentlessly clearing a path. When we were about 50 meters from exiting the transference phenomenon site. This is too fast, asterisk. Wait. I called out to stop Choi-yura. Let's take a short break. What, are you tired? A little. I had deliberately slowed my pace, but Choi-yura's stride was still too fast. Suck it up, Choi-yura said sternly. I told you, didn't I? The bombardment is about to start. I know, but... KSHHHHHH, asterisk. Choi-yura's chains tore through the ground right in front of me. Move if you don't want to die. Now. Damn her temper, asterisk. Moving faster will only put us in more danger. Sigh, asterisk. The problem was that I had no way to stop Choi-yura in my current state. That would have been true even before I regressed to the past. Choi-yura was a dealer, and I was a supporter with not a single damn attack skill. Should I at least point my gun at her, asterisk? As. Have something on your mind, don't suffer alone. Talk to me, alright? Yes. Drip. A cold sweat trickled down my back. I was caught. I could bet my life that my father had sensed my change. My father wasn't just a former and current Special Forces officer, he had also worked for the National Intelligence Service. There was no way someone like him wouldn't notice the change in me. No, anyone who knew me even a little would have noticed. At this time I was just a well-behaved young man, but now I was a worn-out veteran hunter who had been through the ringer for 10 years, experiencing every kind of battle, both on the ground and in the air. Everything about me must have been different, my thoughts, actions, speech, gaze, and expression. Even my mother and younger brother had been looking at me suspiciously these past few days. Father. What? Let's go camping together next week. Camping? It's been over 5 years since our family went camping, hasn't it? Camping. I'm enlisting in a few months. I wanted to take one last family trip before I go. Alright, let's go. My father nodded readily. If our son wants to go, we'll go. Haha. Let's shoot again. This time, not with pistols, but with rifles and a tactical drill. Yes. I picked up a rifle. I'll have to go easy this time. A week had passed. Just in case, pack your gear. Double-check everything before we leave. Yes, sir. In this era, it was natural for even civilians to carry weapons, as gates could appear anywhere, anytime. Our family loaded camping equipment and weapons into father's pickup truck and headed to Yongwol, Gangwon Province. Upon arrival, we set up the tent, caught a few freshwater fish from the stream, and boiled them into a spicy stew. We lit a campfire with firewood and roasted lamb skewers over the charcoal. Have some. I'm okay, father. Why not drink? We came all this way. Father tilted his head in confusion when I refused. I haven't been feeling well with alcohol. Is imminent. I snapped back to my senses. Right, this is no time to be daydreaming. Summon Spirit Sword. The Spirit Sword is a symbol for all awakened, a companion that grows and evolves alongside its master. Abroad, it's called the soul caliber. Though named a sword, it takes many forms. For example, the chains Choyura wields are also a spirit sword. True to my role as a supporter, my spirit sword in my past life was a large leather backpack. So, what would it be this time? Shring, asterisk. A golden band wrapped around my waist. Soon, my spirit sword took its complete form. A belt? Looking closer, it wasn't just a belt. Like pouches for ammunition, rectangular leather pouches were attached to both sides. Infinite deck. A deck containing cards that can hold anything. The higher the user's rank, the more cards they can utilize. Theoretically, the number of cards is infinite. Owned card list. Enhance, heal, loot, search, full moon. I couldn't understand the description at all, so I decided to just try using it. SSHK asterisk. I placed my hand on the leather pouch on my right side, and a card automatically came into my hand. It was just a card, but it felt strangely heavy. It seemed to weigh at least 1 kilogram. Heal. Magic card. 1 star. Restores the target's vitality, ether, and health. Heal? My eyes fell on Choyura, who was struggling. Let's try it. I had never thrown a card in my life, so my movements were a bit clumsy, but it was fine. Whoosh, asterisk. The card flew toward Choyura at an incredibly fast speed. What the? Clang, asterisk. The startled Choyura swung her chain to deflect the card. She must have thought it was a shuriken thrown to attack her. Ting, asterisk. The card ricocheted off the chain. Damn it, asterisk. What am I supposed to do if she deflects it? Huh. I let out a deep sigh and was about to draw another card, but there was no need. Whir, thwack, asterisk. The card returned to Choyura like a boomerang and embedded itself in her left side. Gah. Choyura gasped in. A noble now. What do you mean, noble? There are different kinds of nobles. Well, you're right about that. As a 4-star hunter, Choyura seemed to understand my meaning perfectly. A supporter? When I didn't answer, Choyura laid out her own reasoning. No, that's not it. For a supporter, your killing power is too immense. But if you're not a supporter, your healing and buffing abilities make no sense. What are your main and sub-roles? I adjusted the collar of my shirt to cover my chest. The tattoos weren't visible when he wasn't using ether, so there was no need to cover them. It was just a psychological thing. I don't see any reason to tell you. We're not even on familiar terms. Fine, don't tell me if you don't want to. Choyura didn't press the issue. Unless they belonged to the same guild, it was considered poor etiquette for Awakened to pry into each other's information. You both did a great job. Thank you. The couple approached and offered their thanks. Congratulations. I'm so jealous. Dohyun seemed utterly envious that I'd become an Awakened. Save the greetings for later and move, quickly. The bombardment will be raining down on our heads any second now. Right, let's go. Just as Choyura's urging made them start to move. Huh? Several cards slipped out of the deck on their own and floated one by one over the wreckers' corpses. What the hell is this? I couldn't even begin to guess why the cards were doing this. What's going on? Why are they acting like that? I don't know. I just awakened. How should I know? Fair enough. Choyura nodded as if she understood. Hurry up and deal with it. Unless you want to get blown to bits right after awakening. Got it. Copy that. I walked toward the nearest card. Let's see. What does it say? Loot. Equipment card. 1 star. Obtain something of value from a corpse. Something of value? Swoosh. As if possessed, I picked up the loot card. Whoosh. A dagger lying next to the corpse was sucked. scanned the area. Choi Yura was still swinging her chains, fighting off the wreckers. Bang, asterisk. Do-hyun and the middle-aged man were holding their own, firing guns in a two-man team. Kook. I pulled out a tourniquet, tightened it hard around my knife-stabbed thigh, and ran to help Do-hyun and the man. But the wreckers weren't our only enemies. Kya. Kahit. Right, I knew it, asterisk. Monsters were swarming in. As always, gunfire attracts monsters. The noise from combat. The clashing of weapons, shouts, screams, explosions, it all lured the monsters. Kwa. Kikik. The battle descended into absolute chaos as dozens of different monsters stormed the battlefield. The fight between us and the wreckers turned into a three-way brawl, and casualties mounted rapidly. Ack. Damn it. Kag. Several wreckers were cut down by the monsters. Kayak. In the midst of it all, Choi Yura was knocked back by a 3-star wrecker's blow. Our strongest fighter was now incapacitated. The worst-case scenario. But there was no need to despair. I could feel the ether slowly filling up within me. SSS-Rank. A faint golden light enveloped me. Asterisk. My past life awakening hadn't been like this. Back then, it had been a blue light, just like everyone else's. Could it be, asterisk? A glimmer of hope sparked in my chest. Please, let me be a dealer. Please. I didn't want to awaken as a non-combat hunter, a supporter, like in my past life. I didn't want to be treated as a mere tool, used and threatened while catering to those damn dealers. Please, anyone but a supporter. Just not a supporter. I prayed desperately. I hoped my desperation would be heard. And that it would be granted. Thump asterisk. Feeling my heart grow hot, I shed my plate carrier, unbuttoned my shirt, and looked down at my chest. Every awakened person was branded with a crest in the center of their chest, signifying their role. This meant that the crest I saw would reveal my new class. Every awakened's crest is unique, yet those. I slowly raised the barrel to aim at Choi Yura, a chain suddenly flew toward me. What? Asterisk. KSHHHHH, asterisk. Before I could even react, the chain whipped past the side of my head. I was so startled I couldn't even ask how she'd known. Was Choi Yura always this good, asterisk? I'd only meant to point the gun at her to intimidate her. How could she have sensed my killing intent? Come out while I'm still being nice, she said. Before I tear you apart. Not me, she added, gesturing for me to move aside. I stumbled back, and as I did, the bushes where the chain had struck began to rustle. One by one, figures wearing frog masks crawled out. The masks were all versions of Pepe the Frog, a rather famous character. Joker Pepe, crying Pepe, angry Pepe, smiling Pepe. A menagerie of frogs emerged from the underbrush and surrounded us. What's the matter? Not satisfied with just robbing empty houses, you disgusting wrecker bastards? Choi Yura wore a cold smile. Wrecker. They were a new breed of criminals who had started appearing around 8 or 9 years before this time. Their primary habitat was the city. When they had nothing to do, they would park their motorcycles and eavesdrop on military and police radio, hack into CCTVs, or launch drones to observe transference phenomena. And when a transference occurred, they would immediately race to the area on their motorcycles and engage in all sorts of crimes, from robbing empty houses to murder, rape, and arson. Their main modus operandi, for example, was to assault and threaten victims before extorting their valuables or transferring their money to mule accounts. One might call them modern-day bandits created by the times. Hyenas preying in the concrete jungle, that was the only fitting description for these wreckers. Kiki. The man in the Joker Pepe mask flashed a chilling smile. Look at this bitch, acting all high and mighty just because she's a 4-star. You've got a lot of nerve talking to us like that. Bitch? Yeah, you bitch. From a non-awakened's perspective, hunters were no different from monsters. Just as I'd predicted, no, as experience had taught me, Choi Yura was struggling. Even Choi Yura, who was considered top-tier among 4-star hunters, was overwhelmed by 3 3-star hunters and several 1 to 2-star hunters all at once. Grind, asterisk. Choi Yura gritted her teeth and swung her chains, but the wreckers, who seemed to have trained together for years, skillfully countered her every move. But this was no time for a non-awakened like me to be worrying about a 4-star hunter like Choi Yura. Click, click, asterisk. I thought I'd packed enough, but my rifle was already out of ammo. Bang. Bang, asterisk. I fired my pistol in desperation, but they were returning fire, making it too risky for me to even peek my head out. Ammo. Do-hyun, who was taking cover behind a tree across from me with an unknown couple, shouted in frustration. Use this. I threw him a Glock 23 and a shotgun. What about you, Hyung? I'll handle it. I shouted back and pulled out the axe I used to split goblins' heads. Maybe this was for the best. After all, there was no better weapon than an axe for finishing off a hunter for good. I listened intently. The sound of approaching footsteps reached my ears. 3, 2, 1 asterisk. I charged out and swung the axe at the perfect moment. Hey? The wrecker who dodged my attack sneered as if I were pathetic. It was the one wearing the Pepe mask, looking like a dead man hanging from a noose. Cute. Sure, you bet, asterisk. He looked to be around 2-star. From his perspective, I must seem like a joke. The reality was that even a 2-star hunter could treat an unawakened like a mere toy. I'd need to be, at the very least, a professional fighter or a special forces operative trained in the art of killing to even stand a chance asterisk. How should I kill you? Should I slit your throat, or chop you into pieces? Wrecker lowered his gun and drew the military knife from his belt. SSH, shoo. He swung the knife playfully. The relief distribution center, but a decent distance from the toilets. Still, it was just one of many tents in the refugee camp. Huh? As we were unpacking in the tent, I saw Do-hyun pass by, carrying a bundle of electrical wires and steel pipes. Hyung. Do-hyun recognized me and smiled brightly. What are you doing here? I'm here for a part-time job. A part-time job? I lost my job, so I have to do something to make a living. Sigh. I was a full-time employee, you know. What about your insurance? If I had it, I wouldn't be here. True. The insurance we were talking about was disaster insurance. Simply put, it was a product that covered property damage caused by the transference phenomenon or monster waves. The problem was that the premiums were incredibly expensive. It was only natural that the premiums were so high, considering the disasters of this era weren't natural disasters like floods or earthquakes, but monster invasions and military bombings. And not many people could afford such exorbitant premiums. How could ordinary people afford monthly premiums ranging from millions to tens of millions of won? Then what's the government doing? The transference phenomenon happens dozens, even hundreds of times a year. If they paid out compensation every single time, even the government couldn't survive it. In this day and age, the government's role is limited to setting up shelters for people who, like our family, become refugees overnight and delivering relief supplies. That's the best they can do. We're lucky that the Republic of Korea has such a deep pool of hunters that society can still function. In less developed countries, governments have collapsed, and even this basic support is often non-existent. What about you, Hyung? Same here. How are ordinary people like us supposed to afford those insurance premiums? Still, since my father is in the military, we'll probably get a place in official quarters. We'll have to wait a bit, though. Twin brothers Moon Daehan and Moon Dizong, who were the guild sub-DPS, charged at me, showering me with curses. Sorry, but you're no match for me. Die, you insignificant bugs. The Dragon Lord pursued the Moon Brothers. You fucking shit. Lee Hyun, the main DPS, frantically ran around trying to salvage the situation, but it was hopeless. How long could a guild that had lost its mages, tanks, ranged DPS, and healers possibly last? The guild was wiped out in less than 5 minutes. In the process, I was also battered and bruised, but that was nothing. If I could just screw over these subhuman monsters, if I could just kill them, my own life wouldn't be worth a single damn. I was a non-combat supporter hunter, and alone, I wouldn't even be able to scratch them, let alone kill them. What good was being SSS class? Supporters were ultimately just tools. This act of dumping sewage and destroying the guild, was the only way. I knew my decision would lead the Republic of Korea, and indeed the entire world, down the path of destruction, but I didn't care. Humanity? Go fuck themselves. This world was already broken beyond repair. What difference would it make if it crumbled now? So it's all about revenge? You're doing this insane thing because of your pathetic desire for vengeance over your child? What's so petty about it? A surge of anger welled up inside me. You think it's petty that you've been exploiting me like a slave for the past 10 years? At first, I thought it was teamwork, friendship. But it wasn't. The longer time passed, the more they used me, never giving me proper treatment. Because I was a supporter, they constantly ignored, belittled, and discriminated against me. Yet, it was thanks to me that they became top-tier rankers, among the best in the Republic of Korea and even the world. Of course, I wasn't so narrow-minded as to start this whole mess for just that reason. The decisive reason I vowed revenge was. Then what about letting my mother? World, you have to be a little crazy. Don't you think? Letting go of your sanity from now on will be good for your mental health. The real hell starts this year. I said that and turned back to my smartphone. People were still running away in droves. They're coming soon. Police cars carrying armed officers and military armored vehicles were arriving one after another. 5 minutes left, I guess. I watched police and military forces enter the facility. Why don't you just surrender? The guard suggested. I understand you're having a tough time. This world is crazy, after all. But this isn't the way. If you surrender now. And what if I do? Get life in prison and rot in jail until I die? Or get sent to a mental institution? That's not what I meant. Just say thank you for saving my life. You were supposed to die today. Haha. The guard let out a hollow laugh, as if he was utterly tired of this. He clearly thought I was completely insane. But the truth was, the guard laughing hollowly in front of me was the one who was supposed to die today. I clearly remembered it. The guard's corpse lay there, his innards ripped out and devoured by monsters. It's time. The clock read 9:59. About a minute remained. Slurp, slurp. I sipped the guard's coffee, waiting for 10 a.m. FZZT, FZZT. The moment the clock struck 10, the electronic equipment inside the management office began malfunctioning. See for yourself. I showed the guard my smartphone. Hum. ZZZZZZZZZZZ. A black sphere materialized in the playground between two buildings. Soon, space-time warped, and the surrounding landscape began to distort. What's happening? The transference phenomenon. Do I still look like a lunatic? The guard clamped his mouth shut. I cut the zip ties binding the guard's wrists. Ugh. The guard winced and rubbed his wrists. Stop whining. Grab your gear. Ah, understood. The guard opened the armory and took out a shotgun stored inside. An armory in an apartment. Yeah, it's bullshit. You seem a bit out of it. That's understandable. When people are stressed, their memories tend to get jumbled up. The guard, clearly stressed, was tearing at his hair in anguish. Let's get out of here. After confirming through the drone's feed that there was no immediate danger outside, we cautiously exited the management office. Fucking hell. It's really an infection. The guard swore as he took in the scene before him. Where the paved walkway should have been, the area in front of the management office was now overgrown with dense vegetation. Bang! Boom! Gunshots and explosions echoed through the air. It seemed the military and police, who had been dispatched earlier, were already engaged in a fierce battle with the monsters. The dense foliage made it difficult to assess the situation with the naked eye. I switched the drone's camera to thermal imaging mode. This way. Awakening was important, but survival came first. They moved in a direction less likely to encounter monsters. Fuck. It's already unfair to be on duty on the weekend, and now I'm about to die. Follow quietly. Stop complaining. Yes, sir. After about 100 meters. Kaya. Ugh. Screams erupted nearby. Through the drone's thermal camera, I saw two people surrounded by multiple monsters. Sigh. The evacuation order was issued ages ago. What about Wall? I have to help them. Ugh, the guard looks really reluctant. Fair enough. Even with firearms, it takes incredible courage for an unawakened to fight monsters. If you're scared, just hang back. Is that really okay? Why not? I'm not your superior. That's true. Decide for yourself. Leaving the guard behind, I immediately moved to the scene. A middle-aged man was wildly firing his pistol at the surrounding monsters. Good grief, he's not hitting anything. You should have practiced at the shooting range more often. I raised the Bren 2, a Czech carbine chambered in 7.62 mm, and aimed at the monsters. 5.56 mm rounds had long been. Management office. 15 years ago, such a thing would have been unimaginable. But now, in an era where infections could erupt at any time, anywhere, it was no longer strange for even a humble management office to have armed guards and firearms on hand. Some luxury apartments in Gangnam even maintained their own armed security forces. Moreover, Gangnam was a wealthy district, and since many hunters lived there, it was safer than other areas even if the transference phenomenon occurred. Even in this crazy era, the truth that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer remained an unchanging law, and the myth of Gangnam's invincibility continued to hold true. Until that incident occurred. Any real combat experience? A few times. When? During my military service. What about you? I've had a few experiences too. Maybe a few thousand times. Military service completed? Not completed. The guard glared at me, his eyes practically spitting daggers. Let's go. Where to? We need to get out of here. We'll die if we stay here. Wouldn't it be safer to just hide? The bombing will start soon. Look. I pointed to my smartphone. Around the children's playground, monsters were being summoned endlessly. Crazy. The guard trembled as if he'd seen a ghost. So let's get out of here quickly. All right. This way. After moving the drone to the vicinity of the management office, we began to walk. How did you know? Know what? That the transference phenomenon would occur. You knew in advance, didn't you? When did I? Huh? You're the one who triggered the emergency alarm and reported it to the local defense force after the infection occurred, aren't you? I think you've got the order of events mixed up. No way. When I feigned ignorance, the guard wore a bewildered expression. You're the one who observed the transference phenomenon, pressed the emergency alarm, and reported it to the local defense force. Not me. What the hell? Is that bullshit? That's a relief. I don't even have that. Sigh. Du-Hyun let out a sigh that could have swallowed the earth. I lived in a studio nearby, but the building collapsed in the bombing. Looks like I won't even get my deposit back. Sigh**. I'm almost in tears for him. What about you, Hyung? Me? Well, I'll figure it out somehow. I'm so jealous, Hyung. Sigh, I wish I could awaken too. Since you'll probably be staying here for a few days, let's catch up later. Yes, Hyung. Good luck with your work. Do-hyun bowed deeply and then headed toward the area where additional tents were being set up. That kid's a real go-getter asterisk. But Do-hyun isn't the only one working hard. Among the laborers building the refugee camp, the foremen are residents of my apartment complex. Having lost everything in an instant, they must be taking on manual labor just to earn a daily wage. Maybe I should help out asterisk. Since I have nothing else to do anyway, I rolled up my sleeves and headed to the construction site. Humph. I set the 2 large water jugs down in front of our tent. Oh my, you must have worked so hard carrying those heavy things. My mother, who was preparing dinner, gave a gentle smile. Ah, it was nothing. This is a piece of cake. My son's grown so dependable. Though we'd become refugees after losing our home just a few days ago, there wasn't a trace of worry or anxiety on my mother's face. That was probably because she was an incredibly strong person. She'd once been an athlete and a coach, a badminton player, to be exact. Back in her active playing days, she was an Olympic gold medalist. With her beauty and athletic build, she'd been immensely popular. Even now, if you search for her online, you can see photos of her younger self. Even by today's standards, she was a stunning woman. But it wasn't because she was an athlete that I considered my mother a strong person. She had practically raised me and my younger sister on her own. This was because my father, a Navy special. Newsworthy. A hunter, and a named one like Choi Yura, no less, can't ride a motorcycle? For an ordinary person, maybe, but for a hunter, riding a motorcycle is the most basic of basics. Not only for conquering gates, but also because there's no better means of transportation when a teleportation phenomenon occurs. Wreckers don't ride motorcycles for nothing, I tell you. Get on. Get on. Hurry. Alright. Choi Yura hesitantly climbed onto the seat behind me. Let's go. Virum, asterisk. The moment I twisted the throttle, the motorcycle shot forward at a fierce speed. Squeeze, asterisk. Choi Yura's arms wrapped tightly around my waist. Ugh. I felt something against my back, but I decided to ignore it. Vroom, vroom, asterisk. We sped through the danger zone, dodging falling artillery shells on motorcycles. Thanks to the gifts left behind by the wreckers, we managed to escape the transfer zone safely. Thank you so much. Please, you must contact us later. Thank you truly. You've worked so hard. We'll definitely repay you soon. Only after repeatedly thanking us did the couple finally head toward the hospital. Good job. You too, Hyung. Do-hyun looked half-dazed. I understood. No matter how much combat experience he had, he'd never fought wreckers before, let alone escaped a transfer zone under artillery fire on a motorcycle. Thanks. You saved my life. It was nothing. I shrugged at Choi Yura's words, as if it were no big deal. Oh, and it's not too late to get your motorcycle license. Well. How can a hunter, a 4-star hunter, no less, not be able to ride a motorcycle? How have you even survived this long? Choi Yura glared at me fiercely. Whoa, scary asterisk. It seemed like she wasn't just reacting to being teased, so I decided not to mention the motorcycle again. I'm not completely clueless, after all. Where are you going now? Choi Yura asked, as if realizing she'd gone too far. Well, I guess I'll find a motel or something nearby to crash at. I'm homeless now. Through the air was barely audible before a shell struck the children's playground in the distance. It seemed we'd wasted too much time. Run! Choi Yura screamed. Fuck. We ran with all our might, pushing ourselves to the absolute limit. The impact points of the shells were getting closer and closer. We're fucked, asterisk. Just as Choyura had warned, we were about to be blown to smithereens right after finally awakening. We were so close to the safe zone, but the terrain had been warped into a rugged mountain range by the teleportation, making it impossible to pick up speed. Swoosh, asterisk. A card slid out of the infinite deck, hanging from my left hip. Search. Magic card. 1 star. Scans the surrounding area. I grabbed the card without a second thought. Swoosh, asterisk. I felt a strange sensation in my eyes, and then information about the surrounding terrain flooded my mind. That's it, asterisk. I knew exactly what to do. This way. I changed direction and sprinted. Where are you going, you lunatic? Shut up and follow me. You bastard. If I die because of you, you're dead. What are you going to do if you die, asterisk? Regress like I did, asterisk. I completely ignored Choyura's threat and kept running. Then, I saw several all-terrain motorcycles and a four-wheeled ATV, the kind they call a sabalai, parked ahead. Those must have been the vehicles the dead wreckers arrived on. Everyone, get on. I climbed onto an ATV and shouted. Dohayan got on an ATV like me, and the man helped his disabled wife onto the four-wheeled ATV. What are you doing? Hurry up and get on. Virum, asterisk. I started the ATV and yelled at Choyura. Hey! What are you doing? Hurry up and let's go. Hey! Despite my repeated shouts, Choyura just stood there in front of the ATV, as still and awkward as a sack of flour. Don't tell me, you can't ride a motorcycle? Shut up. Choyura snapped back. Wow, that's really something. How can you not know how to ride a motorcycle? Shut up. I said shut up. Wow, this is seriously. Turned toward my family. The moment I reunited with them, my father began an intense interrogation. So, you're saying you had a prophetic dream? Yeah, something like that. Huh. My father seemed conflicted, unsure whether to believe me or not. But why didn't you tell me? You should have at least consulted me. Do you really think you would have believed me if I'd said anything? I probably would have called it a crazy dream, he admitted honestly. See? That's exactly why I didn't say anything. TCH. Father let out an exasperated sigh but didn't say much more. Fine. If you say so, I'll take your word for it for now. We'll talk more about this later. You're leaving? Of course. This is my job, after all. Since hunters couldn't clean up even the monsters that survived the bombing, the military and police usually handled the aftermath. As the commander of the local defense force, it was only natural that my father was deployed to the monster extermination operation. Humph, even this feels heavy now, he grumbled, lifting his light machine gun. Take good care of your mother and Yunha. Yes, sir. Have a safe mission. I will. Even for a cleanup operation, it was incredibly dangerous for a non-awakened like my father to face monsters. Yet, he never once hesitated or showed fear when embarking on a mission. And I respected him for that. The government built a refugee camp at the foot of a nearby hill. The camp was thrown together in just 2 days. The construction consisted of little more than pitching tents, running power from a temporary supply line, connecting extension cords, and tossing in relief supplies like cots and blankets. Ta-da! The refugee camp was complete. My family, who had been staying at a motel, was promptly sent to this hastily erected camp. Colonel Cha, this way, please. Ah, yes. Thank you. Thanks to my father being the regional defense commander, our family got the best tent. It was a prime spot, close to the sinks, showers, and movement difficult. Let's abandon the wheelchair. It would be better to carry your wife. Understood. The man hoisted his wife onto his back, and the guard and I moved in a formation, guarding the front and rear. After about 100 meters. Halt. A sense of foreboding made me pause. The bushes around us rustled, and several monsters slowly crawled out, encircling us. Goblins, hyenas with human heads, and even a troll. A diverse group had swarmed us. What do we do? The guard turned to me and asked something. Bang, asterisk. Instead of answering, I pulled the trigger of my shotgun. Gack. The guard, hit by the toy shotgun he'd lunged at me with, went flying backward. That was the signal for the monsters to charge at us all at once. We engaged in a fierce battle with the creatures. Pop. Pop. Pop, asterisk. The guard, I, and even the middle-aged man, now free of the woman, unleashed a barrage of bullets at the monsters. But the monsters were too numerous, and the gnolls and trolls, able to withstand a few shotgun blasts, showed no sign of dwindling in number. This ammo consumption is too high asterisk. Empty magazines were steadily piling up at my feet. Ack! The guard screamed. Ka! A goblin had leaped onto the guard's back and was wildly slashing at him with its knife. I quickly lowered the shotgun and swung my axe, splitting the goblin's head as it clung to the guard's back. Thud, asterisk. The guard collapsed. Gack, gack. A third of his neck had been severed, and blood was gushing out in spurts. Damn it, asterisk. I needed to stop the bleeding immediately, but there was no time for first aid. Let's drag him out first, asterisk. Bang. Bang, asterisk. I fired the shotgun, knocking back the approaching troll, and grabbed the guard by the scruff of his neck, dragging him away. Stay conscious. Press down hard with your hand. Huh? Well, look at this guy. The guard was showing some fighting spirit. Gack. The man coughed up a gush of blood, but with his left hand, he pressed hard against his neck too. Forces officer, was frequently deployed and often away from home. Moreover, after humanity began facing monster invasions, my father had to go on missions several times a month, inevitably neglecting his family. How many people in the world could handle all the housework and childcare, send their husband to the battlefield every day, and still face their children with a smile, without a single word of complaint? Even when my father passed away, my mother gritted her teeth and overcame her grief. Her strength shone brilliantly even in the bleakest of times, just like now. Just as I revered my father, I deeply respected my mother. I'm going for a walk. All right. I left the tent and strolled along the foot of the mountain. Life in the refugee camp was mostly tedious. At least people with jobs or studies, like my father and sister, had to commute. But for people like my mother, a housewife, and me, an unemployed man awaiting enlistment, we spent most of our days spacing out. Yet, this dull routine was actually quite helpful to me. It had only been about 10 days since I regressed to the past, and I needed time to think and clear my head. It was only 10 days ago that I had killed the very people I once trusted as comrades. Before that, I had spent 3 years consumed by a blood-red rage, obsessed with revenge. Strictly speaking, I was far from sane. And the me of this era and the me who has been a hunter for 10 years, having been through everything imaginable, would be completely different people. So, I planned to stay in the refugee camp for a while to cool my head and seek psychological stability. And think about the future. Oh? Hyung. Had I been walking for about an hour? On my way back, Do-hyun called out to me. Seeing him on a motorcycle with a delivery box attached, it seemed he had changed jobs to a delivery rider. His life is quite eventful. Changing jobs 3 times in just a few days, from an apartment security guard to a day laborer, and now a delivery rider. Are you a rider today? That's right. Do-hyun gave a wide smile. What about you, Hyung? Me? I'm unemployed. So you're not going to register as an awakened? I'm still thinking about it. Ah, come on. Wouldn't it be better to register? Yeah, I guess so. I have to deal with my military service anyway. Oh, right. You said you haven't served yet. I was originally preparing to enlist as an officer through the OCS, but that's probably not going to happen now. OCS? Yeah. I didn't plan on staying in the military for long. Wait a minute. Do-hyun suddenly narrowed his eyes and glared at me. Didn't you say you were 34? Crap asterisk. What kind of 34-year-old applies for OCS? Well. Now that I think about it, that's weird. Setting aside how handsome you are, you don't look 34. Gee, good luck with your work. Where are you going? You need to explain yourself. Sorry. See you later. Hey. Drive safe. You're not really 34, are you? Now that I think about it, I'm pissed. You shot at me. Huh? Get back here, you bastard. D-room, asterisk. Do-hyun chased after me on his delivery motorcycle. Crap, he's actually gonna catch me at this rate, asterisk. Yes. I got a call. A call? You. Just you wait. Do-hyun turned his motorcycle and sped off somewhere. Even if he's desperate for money, does he really have to take a delivery call right now, asterisk. He certainly had an incredible survival instinct in more ways than one. Awakened registration, huh? I guess I should do it. There's no need to hide my identity, asterisk. Just as I was thinking that and almost reaching my family's tent, a gunshot suddenly rang out. Reflexively, I drew my pistol and scanned the surroundings. The gunfire had erupted from the tent right next to ours. Oh Appa! Yunha, who had just returned, was staring at me with a terrified face. Take mom and get to safety. Okay. After entrusting mother to Yunha, I cautiously approached the neighboring tent. I wasn't wearing a plate carrier, which made it a bit risky, but I felt less burdened since I'd awakened. As long as it wasn't a headshot, I could withstand a bullet or two. Maintaining a point-shooting stance, I slipped aside the tent flap and entered. Ah! I lowered my gun with a groan. Inside the tent, a middle-aged man I recognized sat slumped over, his expression half vacant. Around him lay a middle-aged woman and a student, his wife and child, most likely, their heads shattered. I remembered now. That man. He was the owner of the chicken shop in our apartment complex's shopping center. Heh. It's over, it's all over, heh. Fuck. He sobbed. This fucking world. Heh. Monsters, my ass. We're all just gonna fucking die anyway, right? Hick. Ha. I couldn't tell if he was laughing or crying. But one thing was certain, the middle-aged man, grinning while tears streamed down his face, had completely broken down. Shoo asterisk he shoved the muzzle of the gun into his mouth. Huh. I let out a deep sigh and walked out of the tent. Bang. A gunshot echoed behind me. Suicides weren't uncommon in the refugee camp. Just think about it. What kind of atmosphere do you think you'd find in a place filled with people who've lost their homes, businesses, and families overnight? Refugee camps are generally filled with grief and despair. Especially the newly built ones. While there are people like my family who are determined to hold on and overcome, the reality is that there are far more who simply can't. I need to register as an awakened and move out right away asterisk. I might be fine, but I couldn't let Yunha and mother stay in this refugee camp. You never know when another suicide or shooting might happen. It'll take some time to get an official residence, my father said cautiously, pausing in the middle of his meal. There are no vacant ones right now. Father. Go ahead. I'll handle the housing. You will? I'm going to register as an awakened. I have to deal with my military service anyway. Registering as an awakened would exempt me from mandatory military service. the government would also provide a house, a car, and a generous allowance. Of course, nothing in this world is free. I'd be dragged into all sorts of troublesome tasks. But for my family to escape our refugee-like situation right now, registering as an awakened was the only way. Don't do it. What? Wait, what did I just hear? If you're doing this because of the house, don't. Just enlist and serve your time like a normal person. My father's words were completely contrary to what I had expected. My father's answer was surprising. It was quite unexpected for someone who had dedicated his entire life to the nation. Following in the footsteps of my late grandfather, my father had entered the Naval Academy and was commissioned as a naval officer after graduation. Later, he pursued special operations and volunteered for the Naval Special Warfare Brigade. After becoming a Special Forces officer, he even studied abroad with the U.S. Navy Special Forces Unit, a true elite among elites in the military. Even now, with monsters invading humanity, he had re-enlisted in the Defense Force and was still active as a field agent and commander. I never dreamed that such a man would tell me not to register as an awakened and to live as a non-awakened instead. Why did you say that? Being a hunter, it's not something you can do with a clear head. Well, I suppose that's true. Ahem. My father's expression turned stern. This isn't something you should be agreeing with so lightly. You don't understand. You don't know what hunters actually do, or how they slowly rot from the inside out. I couldn't bring myself to tell him that I understood better than anyone. Instead, I remained silent and listened. I'm not a hunter myself, so I don't know the details, he continued. But from everything I've seen, heard, and felt, hunters aren't just beings who fight monsters. What do you mean? Their world is filthier, more political, more complicated, and more dangerous than you could ever imagine. Is that so? Hunters aren't just selfless protectors of the nation and humanity. They're a double-edged sword. They might be humanity's saviors, but in another sense, they could just as easily become its greatest enemy. A chill ran down my spine. My father's words, though simple, perfectly captured the essence of hunters. The very thing I had seen, heard, and felt for the past 10 years. Was this what they called foresight? Even though he wasn't a hunter himself, my father's insight was astonishing, even to me. He was right. Becoming a hunter didn't automatically make one a savior of humanity. I was the perfect example. Had I not blown up the engineering building out of personal spite? In that moment, I hadn't given a damn about the state, the Republic of Korea, or humanity. I had acted, knowing full well that if I succeeded in my revenge, the Dragon Lord would devastate not just the Republic of Korea, but the entire world. And now, my father had indirectly called me out on it. I've spent my whole life as a government employee, but I still can't bring myself to tell my own son to become a hunter. If you want to serve the nation and its people, becoming a Special Forces officer and fighting monsters is a meaningful enough path. It's not about being strong or weak. My father took a sip of water, as if his throat had gone dry, then continued. And as I said earlier, I'm against you becoming a hunter just because you need a place to live. If you become a hunter simply to live in luxury, you'll learn the hard way. Yes, sir. Father narrowed his eyes, scanning me from head to toe, then asked, "Are you going to register tomorrow?" How did you know? It's written all over your face. I knew from the start. But if you knew all along, why did you say you opposed it? I had to lecture you like this so you'd make up your mind firmly. Father grinned. Seeing Mother, who was beside him, also smiling stealthily, it seemed as if the two of them had already discussed this. Haha. A hollow laugh escaped me. To think that even after regressing, I was still in my parents' hands. Think about it, and think again. Why you want to become a hunter, and how you'll live once you do. Never lose yourself. Protect yourself before you try to protect anyone else. Living as a hunter, you might become a monster. I can't bear to see my son become a monster. Yes, I'll keep that in mind. Alright, let's eat. My father picked up his spoon again. Of all the human emotions, none are as toxic as those that strike in the dead of night. Yet, humans are foolish creatures, doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And here I was, doing exactly that. 2 a.m. Unable to sleep, I slipped out of the tent and breathed in the night air. Maybe I'll go look at the city lights. The refugee camp was nestled at the foot of a mountain, so a short hike would give me a view of downtown Seoul. I began the climb. At that time, I was a young man in my early 20s preparing for enlistment, and my stamina was at its peak. With my physical abilities further enhanced by my awakening, the hike was effortless. I reached the summit without breaking a single drop of sweat. I plopped down on a rock and looked down at the capital of the Republic of Korea. I gazed down at the capital of the Republic of Korea. Still intact, I muttered. The night view was beautiful. However, the areas where transferences had occurred or battles with monsters had broken out were engulfed in darkness. It was as if sinkholes had opened up here and there. And the closest sinkhole was the place that had once been my family's home. I thought of the future. As time passed, the number of those sinkholes would only increase. If I remembered correctly, in 10 years, the areas with lights on would be the exception. After the incident 7 years from now, Seoul would be devastated, and the Republic of Korea would begin to collapse rapidly. A question suddenly struck me. Could I bring light back to the darkened areas? Could I fill those sinkholes? Honestly, I didn't know. I had no idea how to stop the impending doom. Still, since I'd been sent back to the past, I had to at least try to delay it for as long as possible. For now, I pondered my future plans. Having returned to the past and awakened with a completely different class, I needed to devise a new strategy. The age of ruin was upon us. Surviving in such a world was hard enough, let alone preventing the future apocalypse. My thoughts raced until the first light of dawn. As the sun slowly rose, the melancholic dawn that had gripped me began to fade. I won't let my son become a monster. My father's words suddenly flashed through my mind. I am already a monster. I am a sinner who has committed countless atrocities. Even before the revenge began, I stained my hands with blood during the planning stages. The original me? The man who was loyal to his country and people, who would throw himself into the fire for humanity, and who silently supported his comrades, he died 3 years ago. And I will gladly live as a monster. Because to survive in this mad world, it's better to be a monster. I'm not so shameless as to pretend to be a noble and virtuous saint now, when I'm already broken beyond repair. I will become a monster more cruel and terrible than anyone else. But I will make sure my family never finds out. A monster in sheep's clothing. That is what I am. As soon as dawn broke, I headed to Doyen's tent. I was visiting to apologize and ask a favor. Kaya ha ha ha. Woo. The sounds of children, seeds of hope, playing in the refugee camp's open area echoed from afar. It's strange, really, that children are still born, grow up, and play like that even in an era like this. Snore. Doyen was fast asleep, sprawled out on his back. He must have been exhausted. The takeout containers and crushed beer cans scattered beside him told the whole story. Our Doyen must have been so tired. Haha. Feeling a lump in my throat, I pulled the blanket back over him after he'd kicked it off. Sleep well. I placed the side dishes my mother had packed and a small amount of cash on the small table, then picked up the motorcycle keys in their place. I had a place to go, but with no vehicle immediately available, I had no choice but to borrow his motorcycle. Of course, I planned to repay him properly, beyond the side dishes and the cash I'd left as a rental fee. Money? In this era, what could be a more reliable high earner than a hunter? For a hunter, becoming rich was as easy as pie. See you later. I left the refugee camp on Doyen's motorcycle. My destination was Gyeongsang, Gyeonggi-do. It was the headquarters of the Defense Strategy Department, the most powerful institution in the Republic of Korea. And one of the Defense Strategy Department's roles was to register and manage awakened individuals.